Now, this is your go to spot for uncovering today's freshest voices in Christian music, inspiring authors, comedians, and the movers and shakers that are shaping the industry that we love. Now, we're also going to be rediscovering the classic artists who built the foundation of contemporary Christian music as we know it today. I get to be your host. I'm Roger St. James. I am a former Christian radio DJ back in the golden age of contemporary Christian music. And I'm here to guide you through the stories, sounds, and people behind the music we love. Whether you're a longtime fan or just starting your journey, let's get ready to dive deep into the hearts, spirit, and inspirational voices of contemporary Christian music artists. Let's discover together. And that, my friend, is our guest tonight. That is Aiden Grant. He refers to himself as a radio talker, a podcaster, a snackologist, and we will definitely get into more to that later, a music fan, and a lame dad. But Aiden, that does not look like the work of a lame dad. 10 libraries in one day?
Yeah. Look, you got to lean into your kids' interests as a dad. And I've got one son that's an absolute book nerd and one that's competitive. So I was trying to marry the two together with a bit of a fun angle.
The only thing I have to ask is they did get a large pile of books. Now, did you make them go with you when you had to return them all?
Well, luckily you only have to go to one location because they're all
Okay.
linked. So they didn't have to go to their individual libraries. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, you can't consider yourself a lame dad if you do that. I'm gonna like I like to have everybody do here. Take a couple of minutes here to brag on your family because that's one of the greatest gifts we've been given, and this is a place where we want to learn all about you. So tell us how awesome they are.
Yeah, well, I have a beautiful wife who is an artist. So she does like large spray paint murals and pottery and anything that really dirties up our house. Yep, that's what she does, and she's very good at it. And naturally, I've got two very creative boys as well. So, given that I work in radio and talk for a living, and she's an artist, yeah, they're constantly making mess and creative little comic books and all sorts of stuff, and they keep us very busy. So I've got Marshall, my youngest, who's 6, and Jethro, who's 9. Yeah, we live in Geelong, Victoria, Australia.
Yeah, I wanted to touch base on that you're not just somebody doing a really cool accent. It's actually you are you are live and from Australia, which is I'm really looking forward to talking about the comparisons and contrasts between contemporary Christian music between the US and Australia. But I also want to say this. You are one of the inspirations for me to do this show, and I wanted to thank you publicly for that because Aiden is a 2-time winner of Radio Today's Podcast of the Year for songs that changed you, and that's how I discovered you. Why don't you tell some people about how that show got started? It's an amazing show, and where people can listen to it.
Well, that's very kind. Yes, you have been as a guest. So this is a role reversal right now. But yeah, look, this was a show I started. I was doing a drive show in Adelaide at the time, and it was on a Christian station. And my content director sort of challenged me to sort of lean into my faith a little bit more. Because previously I'd worked in commercial radio, where faith was sort of, that was a dirty word, sort of thing. And I liked a chance to shine a light into a dark area. But things changed, and I went over to Christian radio, and then the challenge was set. Sort of, you need to lean into your faith a little bit more. I think that would be good for listeners. And I've always been somebody that loves music. I love going to gigs. I love talking about albums and reading liner notes and all those nerdy little things. And I was trying to come up with an idea that I could marry the two together, faith and music. That's what I like to sit around and chat with my friends about, and I thought, if I like listening to that sort of discussion and having those conversations, I wonder if others would too. So that was sort of the birth point of the show, Songs That Change You, where the two meet in some kind of Venn diagram. That's the show right in the middle there. You got faith on one side and music on the other, and we have this discussion in the middle about songs that have had an impact on people's faith and their journey with God and things. And yeah, it's been great. It's been a really fun show to host.
Yeah, and I've listened to every single episode, and like I said, a lot of the themes that you touch on, I've tried to incorporate into here, getting into the stories, not just because you've talked to some extremely well known and popular artists, and you have the ability to bring out stories and that's what I think is really going to really helps bind Christians together is the stories of life. You're not alone because you often feel that way.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Like, sharing your faith is the one of the most powerful things you can do. Like, sure, reading the Bible is great, listening to sermons and all that sort of stuff. But for me, like, I get fired up when I hear somebody's personal journey and what they've gone through and what God has done. Like, that's what it's all about.
yeah, it's really really exciting. So in the United States here, we seem to be having kind of like a resurgence in Christian music. It's becoming more mainstream again, very popular. Are you seeing the same thing in Australia?
No, is the short answer. Australia has a different relationship with faith. Like, I visited America once, and I was really surprised at how much um, the culture is just they're not separated as much. Whereas it's not uncommon. And look, I guess there's pros and cons to that. Like, you guys have a lot of faith that's just sort of mixed throughout culture, and people say bless you, or they might say, God be with you, or like all these little mannerisms or token sort of things. That's sort of just part of culture. Whereas here, it's very separate. They're not linked, and it's like Christian music doesn't have that same support here in Australia. Like,
No.
I guess maybe 10, 20 years ago, it was a bit more. Like, there was a lot more festivals, and, music was flourishing a bit more with artists like, I don't know, Paul Coleman Trio, and all these sort of people that were touring around and stuff. And with current climate, that music industry in Australia, particularly Christian music industry, has died off a lot, unfortunately, which is
Oh,
sad.
that's interesting. Yeah, and what with the artists that we speak to here, we found out that their ability to do what we're doing here, just all we have is a computer and ring light, and we're able to do a show. And they're finding that with modern technology, most of them don't even need the industry anymore. They don't need the record labels. They're able to do it on themselves, and with Spotify and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, they're able to get their music out there. Is so that's not really going on where you are?
It definitely is, but I think it's hard for an artist to make a living in Australia. America is just so much bigger, and you can tour around and hit, what is it, 50 states you've got? Like, you
Yes.
can go to all these different
I better
markets
know
and
that. Yeah, 50
um, yeah, like, you can go to all these different markets, and you can find new listeners in areas. But with Australia's population, Australia is huge, and it's very spread out, and there's not as many people. So to grow that fan base is tough, or at least to grow that fan base financially is tough. So you have lots of artists that get lots of streams and things, but to actually continue on as a career, it becomes tougher and tougher because they can't put on as many concerts. They can't sell as much merch and things like that to sustain it as a business and an industry.
Yeah, that's something that I hadn't thought about until you just said it because we think about how big Australia is, but it's spread out.
Yeah,
The United States is large, but you can get from one end to the other in 3 hours on the jumbo jet. So which makes it a little easier to do that touring thing. So for a long time, you were in radio and you loved it and you were very very good at it. Um, Now, do you mind if we dive into the state of Christian radio today, which is something that this show is a big, uh, wrong word, big. Well, I don't like that it's not local anymore.
sure.
One of the big issues we talk about is on almost every show is the conglomerate radio station. A few weeks ago, we interviewed the GM of a local Christian radio station, and we talked to him about the strengths and the weaknesses and the problems and the things he's dealing with that. And that's something that hit you, and you are an extremely talented, award-winning disc jockey, and it even affected you.
Yeah, look, I don't know how it works in America, as far as like, talk to me about this, like Christian stations in America. Do you guys have like appeals and things? Like, how does the license work for a Christian station?
Well, the way it works for a lot of them now is when you have and I avoid saying the names, but there's two big conglomerates that
Yes.
are involved, and those
Yeah.
are all they're all
One involves
nonprofits.
an alphabet letter. Yes.
Yes, yeah, and they are conglomerate, but they're all not for profit. So they have their appeals, they have
Yes.
their and even the local radio station that we talked to the other day, which I will say, Q 90.1 out of Massachusetts, they do the same thing. They're nonprofits, so they appeal to the audience
Hmm.
and the listeners and things like that. So they're really, as far I'm sure there are, I'm just not aware of any commercial to use, Christian
Yep.
radio stations that are all for profit. So that's pretty much my limited knowledge of how it works now. But does that help?
Yeah, I was just wanting to get a little bit of context so that I don't say the wrong thing and people get confused. But yeah, it works similar sort of way in Australia. So there's different licenses that the government sells off or hands out, and whether it be a commercial license, whether it be a community license, or narrowcast, I think is the third one. But yeah, community stations have to rely on listener funding, and so a couple of times a year they do appeals and things. And yeah, look, it's becoming harder and harder to get that support for smaller stations. And look, I've worked at a variety of different stations around the country. I've worked at big, massive ones, where I've like commercial type ones where I've hung out with Taylor Swift and all these like big opportunities sort of thing. And then God had other plans, and I started working in Christian radio. It was great. I loved it. I loved being able to use my skills that I'd learned and in this really professional environment and bring it into Christian radio and build that up. And then, after doing that for a few years, a lot of different stations wanted me, and I was offered a few jobs around the country at different places. And I actually took one at a very small station that was near my family, and as in my wider family, mum and dad and things like that, with the hope to sort of, I don't want to say fix, but like come in here and bring a bit more professionalism and lift the standard and help them out a lot. But unfortunately, it didn't go great, as far as they ran out of money and had to let me go. Yeah, so that was 3 months ago now, I want to say. Yeah,
I see, and that's one of the things that attracted me to you as a person, and also to your show. Your level of professionalism is outstanding.
it's
I
very
mean,
kind.
because everybody that listens to this show knows that Eric is the behind the scene wizard who does all the work. He's the one who makes it work. But you did all that.
Yes.
So you are, in addition to doing the part that I do, lining up the guests, interviewing people, you also then went into the studio and did the wizardry. And your show, it's just songs that changed you. It's just such a professionally done show. And what happened to you is just not fair, but God takes care of his friends, and he's kind of hooked you up with something kind of new, right?
Yeah, look, my whole career has been not what I expected, and I feel like God had an idea for me, and He just had to just slowly get me there, just get me there a little bit further, and a little bit closer, and a little bit closer. And His timing is perfect, and He knew what was right for me. So I always wanted to work in radio. I loved it growing up. And I eventually got to work in radio and working commercial radio and loved it for such a long time. And then, I got made redundant there and went over to Christian radio and loved that and worked really well. But if you had have said at the beginning, like, oh, where do you want to work? Do you want to work where it's, you get to meet all these amazing people and have all these, flying around the country and all these opportunities? I'd be like, I'll pick that one. I'm going with that one. But that God was like, well, actually, we're going to sort of steer you this way. And then, Christian radio, I actually really loved. I just had lots of fun with listeners that are really invested and love their local station and really support what's being done on the air. They're so invested. And I loved that for such a long time. And then, I got made redundant again. These are almost decades between, so let's don't feel too sorry for me. But then my church offered me a job saying like, hey, we need somebody to do videos for church, and we need somebody to edit podcasts, and we need somebody to do graphics and interview people and things. And I was like, oh, these are actually all skills I've learnt over the last 10, 15 years of doing everything at small radio stations and these big skills that I've learned and things. So yeah, I feel like God always had a plan. He just had to get me there without my knowledge, because I wouldn't have gone from it for the start. Like, what, work for my church? Nah, that's not going to happen. I want to do big, amazing things, but God had a plan.
And you are doing big, amazing things, and
Well, you know
that's
what I mean,
what.
you know.
Oh, no, no, no! I know exactly what you mean, and that's what's so exciting about hearing the stories, because like right now, you're where you are, but who knows? 5 years from now, 15 minutes from now, you're going to hear somebody say, "You know that thing you said." And to you, it might have been just a word that you just threw away, but it changed somebody, and it made somebody's day better, their life better, brought them a smile, and that's why I just love the stories that you and I get to talk about with these folks. It's,
Yeah.
it's so fascinating. Where did you find your faith? I was fortunate enough that it was just part of my mom, and it was just instilled with me from day one. But what about you? Where did you start your walk?
Yeah, so I was raised in a Christian family, and it was a very strict Christian family. It was very rule based, and I love my parents; they're awesome. But it was just more something we did on Sunday, and it was obviously a lifestyle, but it wasn't like a passionate sort of relationship with God or anything. I don't know. Like again, they're awesome. They go to church very faithfully every Sunday and stuff. But it just wasn't something that I bought into growing up. And then I was some point in high school, I was getting bullied for like being a Christian. And I was like, I don't even know if this is what I believe. I don't know. It's just what I do on Sunday. Like, I feel like I might need to decide that before you start bullying me for this. And that made me think like, oh, is this what I believe? Is this what's going on? And I found God through a great youth group at church, and yeah, really invested like in my faith, like really leaned in, and yeah, have been a Christian ever since. And I've obviously I've gone to a variety of different churches and different things over the years, but I've always come back to my faith with God. And yeah, it's something that's really important to me and something I'm hoping to sort of instill into my kids. Again, just sort of encouraging them and not pushing, but just sort of like guiding them. And they're getting there. It's good to see.
Oh, and the lesson my mom gave me, she lived it.
Yeah.
If she wanted to talk to her about it, she'd talk to us about it, but she just lived it. She read her Bible every morning. She was nice to everybody. She knew everybody had a story to tell, and she just lived it, and that's and like you, I strayed here and there along the way, but it was the foundation, and that's what I believe you're doing for your kids, and that's going to be such a gift as they get older.
That's the aim. We're trying. That's all we can do as parents, just try our best.
So I'm going to turn the tables on you a little bit, Aiden. Uh, what is the song that changed you?
So this is a cruel question that I have asked many guests, hundreds of guests over the years, and uh, I came up with the title of the show as a plural, songs that changed you, because it was tough for me to narrow it down to one. But ironically, most guests, we just did one song. So um, look, there's been heaps of songs that have changed me, heaps of songs that have um, been important to me. I did talk about recently on the show for our 100th episode a song that was really important to me. It was by Reliant K, a band that I absolutely loved growing up. Like, I came through high school in the early 2000s, which was sort of when, I don't know, pop punk and emo was having a real moment. And I was very drawn to that. I was a rebellious teenager and loved that. But, then you had bands like Reliant K, and you had bands like MXPX, and sort of, I don't know, Audio Adrenaline to a degree, and lots of, the Wedding, and all these different bands that were, um, I don't want to say creating an alternative for Christian kids, because they were just as good. They were doing, it wasn't like a knockoff, cheap imitation. Like, Reliant K became artists that I just loved, and they spoke about their faith, but not in a like, hey, jam it down your throat sort of way. It was just more in a real way. They were teenagers that were going through high school, and they were discovering God. And yeah, I loved them. I absolutely loved them. And if it wasn't for bands like that, I think I probably would have, like, I listen to all sorts of music. I listen to mainstream stuff. I listen to Christian stuff. If it's good, I listen to it. That's sort of been my philosophy. But if it wasn't for bands like Reliant K, I probably wouldn't have had that connection so much with God, because I needed that. I needed the cheeky pop punk sort of stuff, because that's what I was drawn to, and I was so lucky that there was bands in that had that sort of faith built into it as well.
Yeah, and that's what we're really enjoying here, is because we've had country artists, we've had praise and worship, we've had heavy metal, we've had pop, and and what I'm really liking is that, like you just said, it's the type of music that you were drawn to, just because of wherever you were in your life, but it was the message of the music that kept you
Mm,
there, and that's what I think tends to get lost, because I've never liked the comparisons. So if you like, I'm just gonna throw this out there. If you like Phil Driscoll, then that means you used to like Joe Cocker, or
yeah.
I've never liked that. I like the fact that Reliant K was Reliant K.
Yes.
Lisa Bevel was Lisa Bevel. It, and that's what I think kind of got lost towards the let's say early 2000s, and it started to bleeding, and everything just kind of started sounding the same, and the individual sounds went away, and
Yeah.
and everything became even more corporate, and we kind of lost that. So I'm glad to see these independent artists coming back, and Reliant K they're still out there,
Mm.
and they're still playing. And actually, I just saw the Striper just released a new one.
Yes, I
I
was I was just listening to an interview with the lead singer from Striper, and it was, yeah, it was awesome. I loved hearing, because Striper were a tiny bit before my time. Like, I knew them, but it was a little bit before my time. But it was cool hearing how they just did their own thing, and like, they were just passionate about God, but just like, no, like, we're not going to conform to what the church wants us to be or the world wants us to be. We're just going to live out our faith. Like, and I loved it. It was awesome. Those guys are incredible. I've got love for them. Yeah.
Well, like over my shoulder here, there's Striper, the Yellow and Black
Yeah.
Attack. That's one of the albums back from the, and then there's of course Immigrant on the other side, just because you have to.
Sure.
But so as as far as it's going forward, where do you see the industry going? Like I said, and I really appreciate the way you explained to me the differences between Australia and the United States. I had no idea that there was such a, I don't want to use the word disconnect, but a separation between the ability, because now that you've taught it to me, the United States is compact. Everybody can be together, and you can you can hit 4 states in one day.
Yes.
So, do you see any type of movement forward, or is it just maybe you're just kind of waiting for it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, as far as Australian music goes, a lot of artists move to America to make it big. Like, I mentioned him earlier, Paul Coleman, massive band in Australia, but they were massive for Australia, which means they were very small. And then he went to America, and he's I think he's back here in Australia, but like played with Newsboys and like did all this sort of stuff because he could only go so far here in Australia and needed to go to America to get to that next level. But as far as the wider industry goes, I feel like literally like maybe 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, but it has been for a while. Look, I don't want to throw shade, but I just feel like so many bands water down their sound so that they can just sell some worship songs because that's what sells, and they lose their individual style because they're desperate to get that ad from the big conglomerate radio station, like, and if we're too unique, if we're too our own thing, we're not going to get the the ad for the station. We're not going to get put on their playlist because we're too out there. And that becomes really boring because I feel like there's a whole lot of teenagers that need that individual style. They need that. For me, it was pop punk, emo type stuff. But for other, kids these days, it's probably more the hip hop sort of thing. Like, gee, that makes me sound old. but you know what I mean? Like, you lose that individual style, and music just becomes boring. And I'm enjoying seeing a few bands come through at the moment that are trying to hold on to who they are. I know that sounds a bit
No, no,
pessimistic, but
no.
yeah, like the
It
band's like
sounds exactly
hopeful
like,
and stuff.
yeah, that they're trying to stay true to who they are because they know that that's what they're supposed to do,
Mm,
and hoping to catch on, and and that's what a lot of the, to be honest, that's one of the things that sparked this show was, no, like we discussed earlier, nobody sounded different. Everybody sounded the same.
yeah.
And that's how I got started. I just started, I had to get my 23-year-old to show me how to use Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff. But but he did, and I just put in new contemporary Christian music. And all these artists that I had never heard of before started popping up. And they have individual sounds. And that's, it was kind of the push, other than listening and being inspired by what you were doing, the push that to get this show going, to introduce these folks out there who don't have the label behind them, who were
Yeah.
just trying to do it on their own. And I think, like you said, that's the future. We just have to keep praying for these folks and keep doing what we can to get them out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, in addition to being a radio, a multi-time podcast award winner, you are also the first snackologist I have ever met.
Yes, my degree in snackology is something that I am very proud of.
And well earned. Tell us, Professor, where did it's a lot of fun. It's a great video series you're doing. Where did that
Yeah,
idea
so
come from?
so the drive show that I hosted for 6 or 7 years, called Aiden and the Arvo, and there was a segment that I did called snack attack, where I would get new snacks each week and try them on the radio. And it just was just a silly thing that I just started doing each Tuesday, and listeners just became obsessed with it. And every like outside broadcast or concert or anything like that I was at, that was the feedback that I would constantly get. Like, people would come up and go, like, "Oh, my kids love your snack attack. Oh, the kids are always nagging us to get the snack that Aiden talked about on the radio. Oh, we love snack attack." And I was like, on one hand, I was like, there's more to my show. Like, this is just one little segment on Tuesday, but that's fine, whatever. But then, but then, really, I was like, mostly just very appreciative that people are listening and enjoying what I'm doing. So when I finished on the radio, I was like, well, I need to keep this going because people love this. And I kept getting messages like, "Are you gonna? Could we do this online? Can you do it on Instagram or something?" So yeah, that's what I do. I try and at least once a week. I haven't done one this week. I might try and do that this afternoon. But yeah, grab a new snack from the supermarket, and they're always releasing something new. And rate it and review it with my finely tuned taste buds from my 5 years of studying to get my degree in snackology.
Aiden, you've got to make that an official. You've got to come up and start educating people on how to be a snackologist.
Yeah,
and give
run
them
some
their
kind
own
of
degree.
course.
Hey, before we jump and show people one of your snack attacks, something we do here at the end of the show is, as you know, my youngest son Matthew is profoundly autistic, and 9 seconds means a lot to him for whatever reason. So we like to ask our guests if you have 9 seconds of wisdom that you want to shoot out there for Matthew's 9 seconds of wisdom. What would you say to
Are
somebody?
you going to time me?
No, I'm considering doing that just to make it even more annoying. But
Okay.
but no.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna try my best, but cut me off as soon as you hit the buzzer or I get to that 9-second mark. Are we ready? When does the clock start?
Yes. It starts now. Go.
Okay. My 9 seconds of wisdom would be who you are. Be who you are unashamedly. Stand up for what you believe, even when it's awkward and weird and people think you're strange. Do what's right. I don't know. That's something that I've always tried to do, even in awkward situations. Be who I am and stand up for what I believe. 9 seconds?
Thank you.
Ish?
That was ish. Maybe
Ish.
we'll change it to Matthew's 9-ish seconds. Aiden, man, it has been great to actually finally meet you live and in person. We've spoken over the phone, and the time I did your show, I couldn't get my camera to work, so I never got to actually see you. So,
well, you're doing a great job as
been...
well. Can I pay the compliment back? I love that you're back on the radio. I think this is really awesome that radio never dies. It gives me hope that I'll one day be back doing a show. But yeah, I think you're doing such a good job, man.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And we've been putting up your information on underneath us while we've been talking, but do you want to give out your socials so people can keep an eye on you with what you're doing?
Yeah, come have some fun on Instagram with me. It is Aiden_S_Grant. That's AIDEN, the correct way to spell Aiden. Anyone else that spells it with a Y or 2 A's, you're wrong. I apologize. Your parents didn't love you as much as mine. AIDEN_S_Grant. Yeah, come say hey. And look, Songs That Change You, while I'm not putting out new episodes at the moment, there's still 106 or 7 episodes up there to check out, including Roger's great episode. So yeah, take a listen. I'd love to hear what you think.
Aiden, thank you very much, and I highly recommend that everybody watches all 106 episodes and listens to it, because they're really very good. It shows you how much hope that God actually gives everybody every day.
Yeah,
in different ways. So as we're going to go out here, we're going to go out on one of Aiden's world famous snack attacks. Aiden, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
You're gonna go nuts for this one.
A snack attack. A snack attack. A snack attack. I went to the supermarket and I got myself a new snack.
Yes, I did. What do we got? It is Kit Kat hazelnut. Hence the joke at the beginning. You're gonna go nuts for it. Although are you? I feel like Kit Kat is scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to new flavours. Like, let's be honest, you got a bag of mixed nuts. Hazelnuts are the ones you leave till last. They're disgusting. Except when they're mixed with a buttload of sugar and chocolate. Smells like chocolate. I am getting some Nutella kind of vibes, and my guess is that they couldn't quite strike a deal to make it official, so they just had to go with hazelnut instead of the official tick of approval from Nutella. It just tastes like chocolate. Could be a regular Kit Kat. I wouldn't know the difference. And I'm a trained snackologist. Yeah, I wouldn't bother. It's nice, but not worth trying. Sorry, guys.